joining me for our final edition of our three-part series on bread making. All of the breads we've made in this series come from cookbooks found at the Lubbock Public Library. There are so many cookbooks and especially a lot of bread making books. I encourage you to try them out. Let's recap. To start off this series, we made Boston high-rise bread found in this artisanal baking cookbook. Those were those breads. They were very dark brown. We made them with molasses and baked them in coffee canisters. How cute was that? Next, we went to baking bread at home and we made pretzels. That was a little bit challenging. It took a lot of work to roll out those pretzels and then do our horseshoe twist, twist, fold maneuver to make our pretzel shape. And that was fun. Today, we're moving on to a final cookbook, the Williams-Sonoma breads. And we're gonna make focaccia. Focaccia is a super traditional, beautiful, wonderful bread that only takes 3, 4, 5 ingredients, something like that. Super easy, and I'm really excited to take this one on with y'all. Let's get started. So like I said, this recipe is super duper easy. This is absolutely something that you can do when you get home from work and have it ready for dinner time. Only takes a few ingredients. First, I have a packet of yeast waiting in this bowl. Now I'm gonna add some lukewarm water. It's a little bit cold in my house, so I had to heat it up on the stove first. And I'm going to mix this really, really well. We've been talking about how important it is to measure out your ingredients by weight. Even like a tablespoon varies depending what brand of spoon you buy. So even for my water, I just switched to the fluid ounces measurement on my scale and weighed it there. Now that my yeast is nice and mixed in with the water, I'm going to add flour. What I love about this recipe is that it is not as strict as the other ones we've used so far. This one gave me a pretty big leeway in determining how much flour I want to use, because I love how the recipe trusts me to make that decision of finding the texture that I want. So right now I'm still really, really soupy, so I'm gonna keep on adding that flour. This step is kneading for about 6 to 8 minutes. Again, until I have that texture that we know so well, having made so much bread now. So I'm gonna keep on kneading right here for about 6 to 8 minutes, and then I'll come back to you guys. Fair warning, I might be a little bit sweaty by then. Phew, what a workout that was. I have been kneading for about 6 to 8 minutes, and I have produced a beautiful piece of bread, piece of dough. So while I was kneading, I of course had to take a little taste test, and I realized that I forgot to mention salt. Salt's a huge component of bread. Really, that's what gives it the flavor. A lot of dietitians cite that as being one of the reasons that bread's not super healthy, but salt gives bread flavor. So we used about 1.5 teaspoons, 2 teaspoons in this bread. Since I did so much kneading, I really got to work that salt in there. So fortunately, forgetting to put it in at the beginning didn't hurt me here. Another great thing about this recipe is that it encourages you that, if available, to use your dough hook or your bread machine to do the kneading for you. That's a really easy way to get your hands off the bread, do something else, and helps get this bread on the table. I have talked about how I love bread making because of that physical action, and that's true. I do love that, but sometimes you just don't have time, but you still want a warm piece of homemade bread. So either way works, and again, that's why I love this recipe so much. So our next step is to take a new clean bowl and oil it really well with olive oil. So I'm usually one who loves to use as few bowls as possible so I don't have to do too many dishes. But in this case, it's really important to start with a new bowl. That's because the bread is going to sit in here and rise for about 1.5 to 2 hours, doubling in size. And it's super important that the stickiness of the dough doesn't stay stuck to the sides. So if you look, maybe you can see here how much dough is sticking to the sides right now, a lot of flour, and that would inhibit the dough from growing. So we're just gonna move it over to a new bowl, and I guess I'll just have to do two more dishes. Okay, so this dough, see, it's already sticking to the bottom, and that's not good. Fortunately, we have this other bowl. Okay, and I'm just gonna stick it right there on top of our olive oil. I'm just using a regular extra virgin olive oil here. Flavor doesn't matter so much. It's really just to get that slick, sticky sides. And I'm just going to grab a towel and cover this, let it rise in a warm area in my house for about an hour and a half to 2 hours, and I will see you all back when we have a risen dough. So my dough doubled in size in a little bit less than an hour. If you remember, whenever I was waiting for it to double in size when we were working on the pretzels, it took a long time. That's one of the fascinating parts about baking to me. On the day that I made the pretzels, it was a really cold day and there was a little bit of a cloud cover. So my house wasn't warming up as quickly as it usually does. Today, it's a beautiful sunny day and the sunlight is shining right through my dining room. So I was able to put my focaccia dough in the dining room, let it hang out there for 45 minutes, it got nice and warm, and it doubled. So that's the wonderful part about baking to me. It's not really systematic in terms of it's going to be done in this amount of time, like it would be if you put it in a bread machine or if you're doing something else like making other kinds of baked goods. So that's what I love about baking bread, and I'm really glad that we made it to this point where we have a dough that's doubled in size. I turned it out of the greased bowl onto this very well sanitized and then floured surface. I did a little bit of light kneading just to work the greasy, oily outside back inside, and now everything has a good layer of flour on it too. So now we're gonna oil our baking sheet. The recipe tells you what size it needs to be. I don't know what size this is, but it's the biggest baking sheet I have, so that's the one I'm going with, just so I can stretch out my focaccia. I'm really well oiling this just so that it doesn't stick. If you don't have one of these pastry brushes, you can always just use a paper towel that you dip in oil. I'm gonna actually go with a second round of olive oil just to make sure we don't have any baking sticking, and of course it's gonna add that wonderful olive oily flavor to our focaccia. Okay, we are very well oiled, and I'm going to stick this dough right in the center and stretch it out as far as I can. Nope. I'm really trying to make it as flat as I can too, just so that it bakes evenly. The focaccia has 2 rising cycles, so that means that after we've spread this out as much as we can go, I'm gonna let it rise again for about 30 minutes, but again, just looking to make sure that it doesn't double, but it rises a good bit and gets nice and fluffy. Okay, and trying to make that even, like I said. Doesn't have to be perfect or fill out this whole baking sheet. Like I said, I just chose my biggest one, but more surface area touching that olive oil to make it better. Okay, so here we have it. I'm gonna see you again in about 30 minutes. We're finally on to the last part in our process. We've been letting this focaccia sit in a warm spot for about 30 minutes, and it's puffed up a bit. Let's take a look. That looks beautiful. It really just looks like a regular biscuit dough to me, before, you know, the ones you take out the canister, but it's gonna taste so much better, I promise. So our next step is to make little dimples in it. That's like the signature look of the focaccia. You're pressed for time. This is really not necessary, but we want it to look real and like it would have just come out of a nice Italian bakery. This is gonna be so good. I actually did try the dough again. It's excellent. Okay, and now we're gonna use our pastry brush again, or if you want, just, you can drizzle as well, some olive oil onto our focaccia. It's really gonna give it a great, moist, soft bite. And then our last step is going to be to sprinkle with salt. And that's gonna give a great crunch whenever we bite into our focaccia. It's gonna give that good textural contrast to our soft, chewy bread. Okay, just a good, generous drizzle there. And into the oven, our focaccia will go. It's gonna be in there for about 15 to 20 minutes, but I'm definitely gonna keep a good eye on it. We're baking at 400 degrees, so I'm just gonna watch it and try to be patient, even though I'm really excited to eat this. I have just pulled our beautiful focaccia out of the oven. Feel it closely. You might be able to see the full salt crystals that are still on the top. That is going to be awesome to bite into it, giving it a textural contrast. I can't wait to use it for dinner tonight. While my focaccia was in the oven, I decided that tonight I'm going to make feta and cucumber sandwiches using this focaccia. That recipe I got from last month's edition of Bon Appetit, which you can also check out at the Lubbock Public Library. Yeah, like you can check out cooking magazines there too. It's amazing. So this being our final edition in our bread making series, I wanted to go over 3 things that we learned along the way. First, we should probably measure our ingredients, wet and dry. That just makes sure that it's the most accurate measurement to ensure the best bread. 2, accepting imperfections. Looking at my focaccia right now, I see that there are parts that are a little bit uneven, but it's gonna taste awesome no matter what. And the best part about that is I did it myself. I so enjoyed kneading, stretching, being patient while it rises, and I'm proud of myself for that. And third, we learned about how many resources really are available at the Lubbock Public Library. Cookbooks, bread making books, and cooking magazines as well. What an awesome place to be. I'm happy to be there. Thank you so much for taking this bread making journey with me.